Good morning, Redemption Hill Church. Good morning, Redemption Hill Church. It is June 23rd, Tuesday morning. I hope everything finds you well this morning. I want to share this morning just a little bit out of the Psalms when David went through a difficult time. And sometimes maybe we find ourselves in a difficult time too. Uh, David's, I'll get into that. Him and a relationship with Saul and how David dealt with that. Really through no fault of David's, um, but but how that may relate to us in dealing with relationships, how we deal with whether it be a business partner, or a job, um, a boss, family members, whatever, any type of relationship. Sometimes you get like in an impasse, and you've tried everything, but it isn't quite working out. You can't seem to fix it. I like to kind of fix things if I can. Sometimes things don't get fixed. I mean, or with my effort or my wisdom or strength or the lack thereof. And so, what does the Bible say? Because sometimes you just feel like you're in this place, and it's like, my goodness, wherever I turn, it isn't working. Turn to the left, turn to the right, do whatever. But there is an answer in the midst of situations that can become just difficult. Things that we can't really fix, we can't really handle. There's an answer for this. David dealt with this through no fault of David. Here, David, he's anointed by the prophet Samuel. And of course, he goes out and he defeats Goliath. And then the song by the people is, Saul has killed. Saul was the king. David wasn't. Has killed his thousands, in battle. And David his tens of thousands. And Saul is getting jealous. And Saul goes kind of crazy. And he pursues David for no reason. David hasn't done anything wrong. David's only served him. As a matter of fact, Saul gave David his daughter to marry. But now Saul's crazy. He is jealous, and he's going to take it out. He's going to kill David. And David literally, sometimes we might feel like we're in a cave. David literally found himself in a cave, hiding from Saul and his men who were hunting David. Here's what David does. In the midst of this difficulty, David can't fix it. David's outnumbered. Um, David's on the run. He can't fix it. But he does something very wise. He sets aside all the circumstances and he does this. And here's what Psalm 57 says: Be merciful to me, O God. Be merciful to me, for my soul trusts in you, and in the shadow of your wings I will take my refuge until these calamities have passed. Psalm 91 would say, verses 1 and 2, He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. So, in the midst of, and it can be a hint to us, nothing's working out. Hey, come to the Lord. This is what David did. In the midst of that actual cave, in the midst of hiding from Saul, he goes to the Lord. Psalm 57 says it was written when David was in the cave. He goes and he spends time with God. When you do that in the midst of circumstances, the situation doesn't necessarily change right then. But what happens is all of a sudden you bring God into the equation. And that's what David did. There's a place in Psalm 91, and David says he takes refuge under the shadow of his wings. It's a place of rest, a place of fellowship, and a place of comfort with God. He lets you know that, he's with you in this. He's a part of this because you have invited him in, because you've gone to him and you've asked for help. And in actuality, when you do that, you can now let go and let God deal with situations and circumstances that really kind of you can't fix. They're out of your control. So much so that what did David do? When Saul came in to use the restroom, he came into the cave with David and his men. And uh, and David didn't slay him. One of his men said, "Hey, God's given it to you." And David says, "I'm not going to touch God's anointed." David could let it go and let God deal with it. And he cut a piece of his robe off. And then when Saul walked across, David said, "Hey, look, you know." And Saul goes, "You're more righteous than I." Maybe Saul comes to his senses a little bit, like, "Why am I pursuing this guy?" No fault of David. David was able to trust in the Lord. David was able to rise above the circumstances because he found strength and rest in God as he took it to him. And he went to that place of comfort. We have the Holy Spirit, the Paracletus, as it would say in the Greek, walking with us to comfort and encourage and help us through these difficulties. And that's what David did here. And then it says this later on in Psalm 57, I will cry out to the Lord, I will cry out to God Most High, to God who performs all things for me. He shall send from heaven and save me. He reproaches the one who would swallow me up. Selah. God shall send forth his mercy and truth. He's coming to the conclusion that, like he started off, it is completely out of my hands, but God is going to be the one that does the working out of all the things that maybe we don't see or that others don't see and the circumstances. God is able to do that. God is able to work that out. And in the New Testament, we know he says, "Cast your cares upon me. I careth for you." And so this is what David did in the cave, in an actual cave, being pursued where he was going to be killed. He couldn't fix it. He couldn't do anything about it. But he went to the one who can and does. And then it goes on to say, David says, "My heart, O God, my heart is steadfast. I will sing and give praise to you." I'm not going to be moved by all these things. I'm not going to be moved by Saul pursuing me. I'm not going to be moved by all these difficulties. I'm going to trust in you. My heart is steadfast. And now I can even praise you in the midst of difficulties. You know what? That's really a place of victory. The circumstances at this point hadn't changed for David, but eventually they do. And these things work out. But he found a great source. Through this difficult time, God had built David up to make him strong and to make him trust in him and be a good king. And so nothing slipping out of God's hands that we're involved in because we're his. And nothing was slipping out of God's hands when it came to David either. So he cares for us. If you find yourself, you just can't fix a circumstance, just in the middle of it, go to him. Let him minister and speak to you as you get wisdom from him, the wisdom that comes from above. As he gives you his peace, you can trust in him outside the circumstances because that's what he wants to do. All right. God bless you. I hope this is encouraging to you.